From politics to football, kicker Nick Lowery is the Chiefs' all-time leading scorer. From 1980 through 1993, the Ring of Honor member accounted for 1,466 points in 14 seasons. But getting there wasn't easy. And now in a new book, Naked and Alone with 80,000 People, Nick shares what he learned through the highs and lows of his career. And earlier, he shared some of those thoughts with me from his home in Scottsdale. Nick, welcome to For the People and back to Kansas City as well. I have to ask you before we dive into the message behind this book. I love the title, Naked and Alone with 80,000 People. My mind flashes to you kicking a game-winning field goal at Arrowhead Stadium. How do you handle that 1.27 seconds of pressure as a kicker?
Well, I really believe, John, just like what you're so good at, I really believe that people can get incredibly good at anything if they train for that one thing. Running on the field, it's just so vivid to me to see the moment when I'm running on the field, sometimes feeling, God, this is the scariest thing ever. What am I doing? But your training, your discipline, and making sure your training is realistic to the atmosphere and the context you will be in. So visualization is important, but more than visualization is also emotionally projecting how you want to feel when you do that, and then visualizing every kind of situation.
And that message, this is obviously a book about your football career, but it's more than that. It's a book about dealing with stress, dealing with failure, and picking yourself back up and learning from that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I literally was told I wasn't good enough 11 times, played a few games with the Patriots, wasn't ready for prime time. In fact, I really believe, John, that if I had made it much sooner or stayed with the Patriots, I would have been like that, right? So those rejections were teaching me, I call it a legacy tree, that each time you get back up, you're a little bit higher on that legacy tree. You see more options. You connect to better people that help mentor you. And you realize in the end, a great lesson for everybody is making excuses does not move you forward usually. Certainly loving yourself is important. Being on your own side is important, but being able to not make excuses and say, what can I learn from this? How can I get better? When I was first cut by the New York Jets in training camp, I'd missed 2 field goals off the infield in San Diego. And my brother and his wife and my nephew were there, and it was embarrassing. And as we're going back on the plane, I know I'm going to be cut, and it's like, is that going to be the end of the world? You know, it takes some courage, takes some chutzpah to confront your true dream, because if you fail, you lose that dream. So is that the end of the world? So within a couple days, it was like, wait a minute, they don't know what I'm capable of. I don't even know per se what I'm capable of. But I do know getting out there more and more and more will get me used to it. So by the end of 2 years, I literally had a job. I'd given up after 11 rejections, and I had a job. I'd worked for Senator John Chafee of Rhode Island twice. And now I interviewed and got a job working for Senator Bob Packwood of Oregon. And I was working on aviation safety and aviation deregulation. And Jim Schaaf, the general manager for the Chiefs, called out of the blue and said, we'd like to sign you. Of course, you're going to go against Jan Stenerud. And I said, thanks, but I got a great job, and hung up. And that is that moment. All of us are going to have that moment where we go, should I try one more time? Should I try one more time? And so I had to trace Jim Schaaf, who was in a hospital bed with no internet, et cetera. And I found him an hour later, which blew him away. They flew me in. They gave me a $2,500 bonus. And I said, I got to try one more time. And of course, I'm going against the greatest kicker in the history of the game, a wonderful man, Jan Stenerud. And he, of course, thought he was going to finish his career after 13 years in Kansas City. This was his 14th. But I outcompeted him. He had a good camp. I had a better camp. So the other part of it is there are 2 fundamental levels of success: making it and having a great first season, but then sustaining it, being consistent, being dependable to your teammates, being somebody they can depend on. That's a wonderful feeling. So you never stop finding ways to get better without getting neurotic.
Right.
Never stop looking for ways to get better.
And you've never stopped looking for ways to be involved. I know you're involved in a number of charities. The homeless are a passion for you in the Phoenix area and the Kansas City area. Why has that been important to Nick Lowery?
Well, I think that's why we do this. That's why we put ourselves through many hells, because we have a chance to inspire other people. And if we have a stage to help, like you do, help people know about the big stories and the better choices, that's really important. In journalism today, let's face it, there's kind of a right and a left. Who cares about right and left? Let's solve problems and make the quality of people's lives better. And there's nothing like working with St. Vincent de Paul, a wonderful nonprofit in Phoenix. When you give, you receive a lot. And yes, the receiver gets something too, but even the person that is witnessing someone doing something good for someone else gets the same biochemical reaction. It feels good to do good. Kansas City gets that incredibly well. That turns your individual success into something much bigger.
Naked and Alone with 80,000 People is the book. Nick Lowery, former Chiefs kicker, the writer. Nick, thanks so much. Congratulations on the book. Nick Lowery back in town this weekend. He signed his book on Saturday, book signing on the Plaza. And Sunday night, he's the guest of honor at the Christian Okoye annual roast. A number of his teammates and other friends will be there. Should be a great night roasting Nick Lowery. It's always a great time with you. Thanks for joining us here on For the People. We'll be back next week.